everyone, welcome back. Sorry I've been off YouTube for a while. I started a business. I am now a metal sculptor slash artist, Jane of all trades, I guess. And I left my career of almost 20 years to come do art. And it has been an unexpected success. So with that unexpected success has come the need for some new shop tools. And one of those little guys that I've acquired is right back there, that Craftsman lathe. So let's walk back there. It's a really long walk. I'm going to show you exactly how far it is, and we're going to end on the tape measure. So if I stand right here, I can almost touch the lathe from the garage door. Not quite. I laid a couple tape measures down just to give you all a good laugh. So those of you who are complaining about your workspaces, I am proof that you don't have to have a lot of space. That's 13 feet to the countertop of the lathe, and we are at 6 feet wide. So the shop, my working footprint, so this area right here is 13 by 6. Yeah. And I'm obviously surrounded by horseshoes of junk and the hoard, but my area is super tiny. And this cabinet came, or this little shelving unit came with the lathe. It's not a real good place for a lathe. It's on wheels. It's kind of flimsy. I mean, it holds it well enough, but I want something a little better and something that kind of fits my needs a little better. I like for storage where it is currently, and I'd like to leave it there. But I also don't want to unbolt it and have to move it every time. So it's tucked in under this little cabinet here. I like to keep it there. I don't like this cart because I'm constantly hitting it. It takes up too much space, and I just want to get rid of it. It's what came with it, and I was happy to take it at the time, but it needs to go bye-bye. So let me push this out of the way, and I'll kind of share with you my idea, and we'll see if we can make it happen. I had this sheet out there because in here everything just gets so cruddy. I had it kind of covering this up. And so when we do build a table, I will have to build a cover for it. Because I don't want all that grit on my lathe. Ironically enough, when I went to pick it up from the auction site, it was sitting outside and it was raining. So I had to bring it home and promptly de-rust the whole thing. So I used to have all of this metal right here sitting on, you can see that little bracket down there. I had a board right there across the bottom, and I had all this sheet metal and stuff sitting, patterns and things sitting on. Just up off the floor right there against the wall. But the lathe fit so well right there, I thought that would be a perfect spot for it to stay. So here is my idea. I borrowed my son's Christmas gift, which was a little thing called Make Do. It comes with these are basically like Clecos for kids. Little screws that go into cardboard, and they're reusable, and it comes with a tool to put these. It's really kind of a neat little kit. But I thought, we could come up with a way for the lathe. Now it's cardboard, so keep in mind, it's cardboard. Not gonna work like the real deal. There we go. So if we can keep the lathe where it needs to go, and then when you're ready to use it, if you could have a way to make this become, again, keep in mind, it's cardboard, a table. That's the general idea. So it requires me to build a couple of these little L-shaped brackets. And then obviously we'll need some support legs here in the front. But if we can make this happen to there, this one's not wanting to cooperate with me. Epic fail. Smash them in a little. I think it'll work. The lathe is pretty heavy. It's definitely heavier than the 109. So it's one of those things I'm trying to consider when I'm building it. So I got thick wall, 1 inch. The 1 inch mostly because it is just easier to build the shelving portions of this out of that. So this is my little I was trying to teach my kid, you have to do math, buddy. Got to do math, and I do math all the time. So here's my plan, and we're going to make it fit on that wall, which means these two shelving brackets have to come out. And unfortunately, I've welded my saw holder to that one, so that portion of it has to stay. This can stay, and we can cut it right here. The lathe should clear, because it is narrower right there, so we should be fine. If we're not, I'll move it. And then that one can just come all the way out. But this is our height. I want to measure from the floor up and just see where we're at, make sure we're good before we get too involved here. And we'll get busy cutting some steel. So one of the worst things about a small shop is when you go to throw steel into the saw. You gotta watch where you're swinging that thing, because you're gonna probably hit something. I know that when I'm in my vise, the maximum tube, or the maximum round rod I can swing at a 90-degree angle is 7 feet. And it clears in between my shelving units. So, not exactly ideal. And I can't get to I have a roller support that would normally support the end of that, but it is backward. I can't get to it right now. So if I let go of this, my whole saw is going to go womp womp. I might be able to, I wonder if I could roll that cart over. How to destroy a lathe in 30 seconds or less. Maybe that cart could come in handy for something. Not the only thing it's good for. Just rolled it over a little bit. Yeah, just gotta do that like, I don't know, 4 more times? That's not too bad. Well, after a few 45s and a couple straights, we got all of our shelving pieces cut. And I did decide to 45. It's just easier to keep it straight, square, if you do it that way, for me anyway. Working with the equipment that I've got. They're not perfect, but, you know, about as straight as you can get for this shop anyway. And I'm getting ready to cut the support pillars or posts or whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to pull these two pieces out. I left them there just so I could kind of line things up. But took all the saws out, and we'll pull all this stuff out of there. And then obviously before I get done with everything, we'll clean all this up, flex seal everything, since it was flex sealed around those. So we'll redo all of that, and I'll probably actually do that before I mount everything permanently to the wall, or paint the wall, or at least I'm thinking about painting the wall. So right now I'm just going to get my back supports going up, and then we'll lay a bar across there and see what we see. Anyone who's ever worked in a small shop knows how quickly when you start a project like this, it just kind of falls apart. The whole shop gets redone because you're trying to work in one little tiny piece of equipment. But I've got the first shelf kind of just mocked up. I just tacked it into place so that we can kind of figure out how that armature is going to go. I got the second one ready to go. These trusty little frame, they're old Craftsman with that like hammered paint on them. I don't know, probably from the 70s. They're little frame makers, and they are fantastic for getting things squared off well. So I'll tack this one up. It's not nearly as heavy as I thought it would be, but I think once I get all the components on, it's going to be pretty beefy. So we're probably going to have a couple 100 pounds on it total. with the lathe. But I'd like to set those up and kind of get the spacing so we can build the armatures and the little bracket, this little guy. And I'm not sure on the ratio on this. This has kind of got my, it's kind of making my brain hurt a little bit. I'm not sure on this, but we're gonna kind of hack one out and see if it's close. And if it is, I will go and build a little computer pattern for that, and we will spit it out. And the flattest surface in my shop is the concrete. So I did put a level on this section just to make sure. I don't usually weld here. I usually weld over by the door. But turns out this section is level both directions as well. So whoever poured the concrete did a pretty decent job. And as always, you got to move, 10 things to get to the one thing that you want to use. So I have those mocked up, but now we need to make those little plates, as I mentioned, these little guys. And so how we're going to do that is using this little guy. This is essentially a baby CNC. Let's see if I can get him out of here. And it's on a little modified audio-visual cart. Not the best setup in the world, but it works for now. Let me get him pushed out. We're going to work out here. It's a pretty nice day today, so we're just wheel him out there and see what he can cut for us. So this little guy turns any handheld plasma cutter into basically a little baby CNC machine by just allowing you to place your torch head into a carrier, and then the carrier mounts to the robotic arm like so. You do have to calibrate all of this before you get started. I promise it does go on there. There we go. And then you just rock these little rockers up. Tight. And what happens is you save your file onto a thumb drive. You can load it in, which we have done already. And I do apologize, it's not showing up real well. I have the torch turned off and we're just going to do a dry run on it. I hope I've ordered this correctly. It looks like it's right. So torch is off, we're going to give it a go. This little machine is quite the engineering feat. Like I said, this is not exactly a precision setup here. I'm a hack, so like most things, but it is level. I did check it. Wind is picking up. So we got one hole. This is the third one. Should do one more. You can kind of follow along here where it's going. Not for some odd reason, it looks like it's going clear over here when it cuts. Yeah. I probably could go in and change that, but we'll just leave it for now if it cuts correctly. Woo, cut her a little close right there, didn't I? So if this works, we'll go ahead and do a cut and see what we get. My torch height control is probably going to be a little bit off. It looks like that metal's a little sagged right there. It has that on it, so it will usually adjust for it. I think it's going to cut correctly. Looks like it is anyway. Sweet. Okay, let me check the level on this and we'll give it a run. So, like I said, there's a bit of a learning curve on this for me as I have 0 experience with it. And I bought 1/4" hardened bolts, and I made this just a little bit bigger. This is 0.27, I believe, and it's close. It's really close. So I'm going to try kind of cleaning that hole up a little bit just to make sure the burrs aren't keeping us from going in. And if this won't go through, I'm going to go up and tweak that hole size just a tiny bit. Make those just a little bit bigger, like maybe 0.28 inches. It's really close. So I'm going to just kind of knock that off there and make sure that's not holding us up. So when I went up and pulled the file, it had set it at 0.65. So we just bumped it to 0.75. I hit it with a little select a bit just to knock the edges off. And it's snug, but we don't have any movement in it really, and it will move in there pretty freely. So 0.275 got us to where we needed to be, and it is snug in there, which is good. So I think that'll work. I still forgot to go in apparently and change the cut so that it's cutting inside the circle. So here's what I've come up with, and it has a few flaws we've got to fix, but I had to see it to figure it out because I am not a 3D model maker. But there needs to be a bumper here, or I need to move these 2 holes in the pattern up, and I think after putting this together now we're gonna have to move these in, because I think this is gonna, when this pivots right here, I left a 1/2 inch and it wasn't quite enough, and I don't want to really round these. It'd be better off just moving it in a little bit. I can probably move that in another 1/4 inch and fix it. I'll show you what I mean here. So imagine it like this, and you can see if I don't fix that or put a bumper in it, we've got this uneven tabletop. It's going to have to sit level. So yeah, let's proof of concept it here. I think we're going to hit the wall. You have hit the wall. You have hit the wall. If we go right here, then when you go to, so this will be our top surface, or our bottom surface, sorry, bottom shelf. And then you fold this up. So this bottom one stays stationary. You gotta fold it down. I think we're gonna hit right back here. Yeah, it's kicking it out. So, we need to move this one in, these up, and we got it. I like it. Let's go tweak it. Yeah, I just spent a little time with the angle grinder, just kind of cleaned it up. I didn't clean the edges up at all. I left those except for that little tick right there where it makes its entry. Kind of ground it flush, but otherwise all I did was knock off, I just took a step bit and stuck it in the hole to knock off that edge where you had the little bit of slag on it. And a bolt goes through it fine. I did open this hole up just a little bit more since we were doing 1/4 inch. So it is just a little bit bigger than it was. I think it's at 0.29, I think. So I am very pleased with that. I mean, that just looks fantastic. This little machine is just I tell you what, I can't say enough good things about this. It's a huge learning curve for me because I have no experience with anything like it. And I don't exactly have, you know, the greatest setup here. I eventually want to do a table arm that comes out that has the plasma, you know, the slats in it, and eventually we'll do that. But for right now, this works perfect. I just make sure I level my surface each time. So we're going to cut another one of those in that same piece, and then we'll go whack off another piece of that 1/4 inch, and then we'll cut 2 more of these brackets, and we'll delete these 2 holes here because we won't need them. So we'll just need those 2. But I think it's going to work, and I'm real pleased with that cut. That looks great. It does take a little while because I had to slow it way down, but looks fantastic. And I know I could probably dial the setting in a little more, but right now it's cutting and I'm not tearing up tips. So I'm just going to leave it alone, get this thing knocked out, and then we can play around with it some more. But wow, what a machine. And props to this little BestArc Plasma cutter. I bought a dedicated, I have 3 plasma cutters. There's a Hypotherm sitting right there. Thank you, Karen. And this little guy I just bought to be dedicated to this machine so it can just stay on this cart. So when the whole thing gets wheeled back, it goes with it. So here's kind of where we are when you separate them. So when the shelves are up flush against the wall, it's going to basically look like that. The lathe will sit on top. Motor and counter shaft will sit on the bottom. These will be our legs. So they got 2 holes drilled here. Those will be the legs. So then as the table portion is moved into position, the legs will stay straight. Kind of hard to do. Legs will stay straight and hit the ground and brace the whole thing up. So let me get the other side of this system made and get those tacked maybe just with a weld or 2, and we'll see if this hot mess actually works. This is kind of what I have so far. The middle support here is not going to stay. I just tacked it up so I could kind of get everything figured out. And then I cut my angle pieces. Probably easier to see it on this side. So these will kick back from like here to here. I'll have to bring that bottom piece up just a little bit so we can clear that screw. So that'll be our support to the wall. And then I've got 4 screws into the stud on each of those. So I got some 3-inch duck screws going into the stud on 4 different places. I can't go right here because we have plumbing. This is a bathroom, so we have plumbing that comes right there. So I put 3 on top, 1 down here on the bottom. We should be good. Well, it sure does seem like a lot of work for a silly little table, but there it is. The only change I would probably make is I would have gone ahead and extended these out a little bit. I'm not going to redo them, honestly. They don't look that bad. And once the tabletop is on here, you won't even notice it. So the lower tabletop will have to be exactly the size inside of this because the bar will be in the way. The upper one, I'm going to make overhang just a little bit, both on the sides and in the front. I'm happy with that. Looks okay. Yeah. Let's fold it down. It's really kind of weak because, number one, I haven't finish welded. I can't see very good over there, can you? Finish welded this, and these brackets are just held up by wimpy little vice grips. So it's going to be a little wobbly. But I can sit on this piece. I've only got 1 screw in it to the wall right now, but I put 3 screws in it and I can sit on it, so it'll hold me. It's going to hold the lathe, right? Yeah. Let me get the tripod and I'll use 2 hands and we'll pull that down, take a peek at it. Try to stay out of your way. So that will be how we go. I like it. It's pretty cool. Need to get those welded so we can really experiment with it. And then I'll just put there's a stud here as well. I'll put a little clasp right here to hold it back against the wall. Most of the weight should be distributed back to that bar that's against the stud and back to the floor. In theory. Pretty cool. Yeah, the brackets should have come all the way out, but once I have that face down on the front of this, I'm going to do a steel top, and then I'm going to do a, I don't know, probably 4-inch drop down or so, because I thought it might be kind of nice to put magnet, you know, like you could have stuff stuck to that. Just be kind of nice to have a finished you know, like a finished edge to it. And on the one down here, I can do this. I can do a finished edge, but I'll have to run it in just a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of a neat thing, kind of a neat table. This one we're going to make overhang just a little, so this piece of steel will come out further. Just make it hang over about 1 inch, just to give me a little extra lip. Don't you give me no lip. So let's get it mocked up to where these guys can get welded on, and then we can really kind of see how sturdy it's going to be. Yeah, I've got the back ones tacked on and setting these front ones, and I'm just going to weld them with it on the wall. That way I know they're positioned where they need to be. I'm just going to check level here, see where we're at. I can live with that one. That one's good. And that one's good. Now, need to make sure this surface here, we don't have any warpage or weirdness going on. No movement there. That's good. And then there. Okay, got a spacer in, got it clamped, got it braced. I'm going to hit these with the welder. I'm going to try to go along and just kind of make sure they're roughly eyeball straight, because everything else looks good. So as long as those are close, I'm going to live with it. I have made an absolute utter mess of this place. I cannot wait to clean this all up. I can't take it anymore. I don't think the counter shaft is going to fit. So we may have to have a counter shaft for the counter shaft. I measured it. I went and measured it again. I don't think it's going to fit. This is all the room I had, so yeah, I have to make it work. So I was thinking if we could, and this is another problem for another day, but I could recess the counter shaft and put it on a piece of steel that's also on a lever, counter shaft lever, that makes it come up when the lathe is in operation. We'll just have to see. I've made it as accessible as I possibly can to make it speedy and ready to go. So we may just have to unbolt the counter shaft and lay it down, and then each time we use the lathe, bolt it back up. That's going to be a real pain, but otherwise I don't get to keep this thing set up all the time. So we're going to deal with it. I'll figure it out when I get there. Another problem for another day. Oh, I couldn't get the right angle on that one. Let's see what happens. Dropped a little bit on that one corner right there, but that could just be because the bolts aren't tight, really. Finger tight. Those need tightened up. Yeah, so once we get our table legs on, sweet. Well, my big concern was that the counter shaft wasn't going to fit back there on that side. And I'm here to tell you, there is no room for error. In fact, I may have to shave, once we figure out kind of where it needs to go, I may have to shave the bottom of this 1 inch just a tiny bit, because it hits just barely right there. And we have no room for error on the wall. So when it's actually engaged, flip it down this way. I'm going to have to flip that knob around too. So that's when it's engaged. I mean, probably got It's probably an inch, but no room for error. That's for sure. So let me see if we can get this to go back up. I mean, it's gonna take two hands. I'm gonna go put you in the tripod. It clears, but it's close. So how close are we? Right here. Let's see. So we probably could. Is coming forward gonna help us out or hurt us? It's gonna hurt us. We need to go back. Yeah, so we're back as far as we can go. Boy, that is close. Okay, so once we figure out where that is gonna go, when we get it all set up, I'll decide if I'm gonna shave. I mean, it's just touching by a hair. It's barely hitting. So we can shave this down, the 1x. Just groove a little notch there for that, once we kind of figure out where it needs to go. That is close. That is just so close. It's a good thing it's shaped like it is. Wow. You know, sometimes when you design things in your head, they work great on paper, and then when you go to execute, the plan has a flaw or two or three, but it's super rigid. I am like super happy with how rigid it is, and when it's up, it wants to stay there. It doesn't really want to fall down, so I don't think I'm going to have any trouble really keeping it up there. Well, here it is. I've got a piece of sheet metal just kind of sitting up on top, cut down to what the size is going to be. I need to go around and finish the edges. I started to kind of roll the edges a little bit. I need to work on that a little bit more. And then round the corners. I think I'm going to round them even a little bit more than that. And then the front, we'll have a 3-inch strip that goes across the front. This is about 4 inches. And we'll hide all of that stuff there. And then in the corners, I'll do this setup. This little nut will get welded to the bottom of that sheet metal. This will get welded into the corner. So we tighten our countertops down from the bottom side and you won't see any bolts. And then that little trim piece that goes right here, we're going to split it about right there. And I got some drawer slides so we can make a little tray right there to kind of keep end mills and bits and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully will fit in there. So yeah, it's about there. A lot of little engineering things in this one, for sure. I probably will go back in, can't really see that, but go back in here and kind of put caps over all of this stuff so it's closed off. Just look a little neater if we can do that. Not gonna do it right away. Basically just need to get my shop back in order. I got a couple of commissions I gotta finish out. Let's see if we can do it one-handed without dropping that off of there. Yeah. So that's what that's gonna look like. I like it. And now that I've seen the legs over and over, kind of hanging up and down from there, yeah, they don't bother me as bad as they did at first. I like the fact you just pull it out and drop it down and you're done. You don't have to do anything. So it's probably going to stay the way it is. The back countertop won't be able to be as wide as this one. I gave myself a little extra room just to lay tools when I'm working with the lathe. You know, you want to lay something down. So I overcut it just a little bit. This one can only go as far as this 1/4-inch bracket. So the second counter will be just a little bit narrower just to get that in there. Aesthetically, if I decide I don't like it, I can always cut this front one down. But yeah, coming along. Well, if I want to keep the lathe here, I can never have a bigger one. It clears by about 1/8 of an inch, but it clears.